the 14th of April. It's a date lodged in the memory of these residents of Borno State. Relatives of the schoolgirls abducted from the secondary school in the town of Chibok exactly 5 years ago. At least 267 adolescents were taken on that day, prompting a worldwide campaign to secure their release.
Bring back our girls now!
Including a televised address from then First Lady Michelle Obama.
Like millions of people across the globe, my husband and I are outraged and heartbroken over the kidnapping of more than 200 Nigerian girls from their school dormitory in the middle of the night. This unconscionable act was committed by a terrorist group determined to keep these girls from getting an education.
5 years later, the world's attention has moved on. International events aimed at raising awareness of the 107 girls still missing were sparsely attended, to say the least.
Boko Haram is said to have killed more people than ISIS.
Only a few dozen turned up for a panel discussion at the Africa Centre in South London, despite a lineup packed with luminaries from the academic and activist world, underlying the challenge in keeping the girls' plight in the headlines.
Basically what we want to do is, talk about the issues, the national response, the international response, the psychosocial support, the gender violence, and what is it that we can do going forward to bring back the issue of the Chibok girls and all the other women and girls that have been abducted by Boko Haram back onto the agenda.
It's not just the Chibok girls suffering at the hands of jihadis known as Boko Haram. The group has disproportionately targeted female civilians in northern Nigeria.
We need to recognize the gender violence that has characterized Boko Haram's insurgency. It's one of the worst in the world. Boko Haram uses girls as young as 7 as suicide bombers. So what we're dealing with is a scourge. We need to deal with that. That's the only way we're going to be able to deal with the associated fallout. And even when the girls return, as they continue to return to us, be able to understand, the extent of what they've all gone through.
The command center will be relocated to Maiduguri and remain until Boko Haram is completely subdued.
A solemn pledge to wipe out the terrorists propelled former General Muhammadu Buhari to the presidency in 2015. But 4 years and another election later, Boko Haram continues to wreak havoc under Buhari's second watch, a source of great frustration for many Nigerians.
We need more action from governments. I think we must credit the government for its effort in ensuring that at least 103 of those girls have been released in the last 2-3 years. But then it appears the dialogue that had started, which has injected hopes into the hearts of Nigerians that the girls would return, has been stalled in Abuja. And more than 20 months after the last 82 girls have been released, we haven't had anything about the 112 girls.
Securing the release of the remaining girls is not the only challenge. Many of the former detainees have struggled to reintegrate into Nigerian society, particularly those who have borne the children of jihadists.
We do run a rehabilitation reintegration program. It's pretty comprehensive, looking at many components, including trauma. But we also face a lot of difficulties when we come to reinsert them back into communities. There's still a lot of stigmatization around people who've been associated with Boko Haram, which makes the reintegration process particularly difficult. A lot of people are reminded of their own trauma when they see people coming back out of captivity. A lot of these young girls are coming back with babies that were born in captivity as a result of sexual-based violence. And communities are finding it very, very hard to accept and integrate these babies.
But for the families still waiting for word of their beloved daughters, reintegration, with all of its challenges, seems a distant dream.
5 years after the abduction of the Chibok schoolgirls, an international pressure for their release seems to have faded. Now, with these international commemorations in London and in New York, activists on the girls' behalf hope to raise awareness of the fact that 117 Chibok girls are still missing. Further than that, these activists also want to raise awareness of the victims, the mostly female victims of Boko Haram. Laurie, Arise News.